So we have a major moment here that comes this week, midweek, about Thursday, depending on what time zone you're in. It's a major full moon. It's the major climax full moon of Mars in Gemini. Mars retrograde in Gemini. The moon will be exactly in the same degree as Mars, and so it's a full moon, so the sun will be opposite that. So we get that opposition of the sun and Mars that times that climactic point of the Mars retrograde cycle arriving this week. We're going to talk about it in that video and break it down. Let me just shift over here and share my screen and start getting deeper into this. I want to start by just looking at the chart. So it's December 8th, Thursday here in Central Europe at 5:08 a.m., which puts it late in the evening in New York, and then even a little earlier in the other time zones in America. Of course, you'll be later mid-morning there down under or in Asia. But let's just take a look at this chart. Remember, the major theme is the climax of it, because when Mars retrogrades, it's always opposite the sun when it's doing its retrogradation. That happens every time. And so you can see here the moon and the sun are at 16 degrees, 1 degree minute, while Mars is at 16 degrees, 7 degree minutes. It's a mere 6 degree minutes of Mars's connection to these luminaries. And so this you might say is the Mars retrograde syzygy, the full moon that very much triggers Mars retrograde in the story of Mars retrograde. We're going to talk a lot more about other features of the chart. I just wanted to start there and shift into this component of the moment. When you can see the dates here, right on that Thursday morning here in Central Europe, 5:08 is the full moon. 5:18, the moon will conjoin Mars. So what is that, 10 minutes later? And then you'll have the sun opposing Mars at 6:41, an hour and a half later. So that's how intertwined they are in terms of the time. It all happens in this small pocket of time. And the one thing about this day is that the moon then separates from Mars and applies to Saturn. Now, this is maybe a nicer trine from Saturn, but this is what we would call a textbook malefic enclosure, when the moon has to carry the light of one so-called malefic into the joining of the other so-called malefic. So this whole day, I think, has the potential to be quite grimy, grindy, frustrating. Maybe might be the key word, is frustration. You might want to be prepared for this. So this would be Wednesday night in America, morning here in Central Europe, or afternoon, evening down under, just to be aware of how intensely martial and Saturnine this astrology is in terms of triggering energies that aren't the easiest. So just be aware of that component of this moment. Let's keep shifting. I've talked about the Mars and Gemini transit in two major videos that I did. One was just the planning and preparation video, where I went more into symbolic themes of what I consider Gemini, Mars, Mercury, the opportunities of this transit, a whole host of things. The major theme was using it to kind of pause and review and plan for January, February, when everything moves direct, and then into March where the major shifts come. And so it's a planning time. So I have here planning and preparation was the title of the video. And then I had another video where I went into the mundane astrology, where I made some connections related to similar Mars retrogrades in the past, and the ideas that even collectively, we're in a transition phase of maybe a year or two, when what might emerge is these kind of new orders. And this would, I was calling it Pax Digitana, the piece that comes from this kind of digital empire that may be emerging. That's going to be a theme here I want to look at a little bit more in this video. And I also point out, I don't have a screenshot, but Dan Waits and I on his YouTube channel, World Astrology Report, we have a 4-part video series, The Astrology of the 2020s, where we actually go into other major factors astrologically that point to a similar conclusion, not just this Mars retrograde cycle, but other big changes that are coming. That video series is more about the outer planets, the contemporary, really not contemporary, but the modern outer planets is what I call them, our Barbeau outer planets. These are the outer planets as astrologers considered them in the second half of the 20th century, early part of the 21st century. Now we're in a more postmodern understanding, because we know that Makemake, Haumea and others have joined Pluto, Eris. Those discoveries happened at the beginning of the 20th century, so it's a little bit more diffused in terms of the definitions. But when you just look at those modern outer planets, the similar story emerges of this kind of digital kind of empire that may be emergent. So you can go to these two videos and check out some of my Mars retrograde stuff during this week, this moment when the full moon is peaking, this Mars retrograde full moon peak. Okay, let's come back to the chart. Let's do a little bit more delineation here. The thing about the chart is that we just go to the moon conjoined Mars in Gemini, ruled by Mercury. Where's Mercury? Averse in Capricorn. So Mercury's not really seeing much here. I kind of like that Mercury gets out of this opposition. There may be some ability to sort of come back into the Saturnine component of the chart just by looking at where Mercury is in Capricorn, domicile ruler Saturn. And we can come back into maybe more stable energies. We're not, with Mercury and Saturn, having to be a part of this mutable opposition that we've been living through. By the way, we're thick in it right now. Remember, Mercury and Venus were in Sagittarius with the sun, all opposing Mars. And I found it to be a very kind of energized period. You saw a lot of stuff happening that I'll talk about in a second with social media, a lot of changes, a lot of kind of ideas and debates and disputes. A lot of that was triggered in the last, week or two. And as these planets begin leaving Sagittarius, I think all of that settles. And the good news about this syzygy, this full moon, is that you at least have Mercury now settling into Capricorn as the domicile ruler here, Saturn as the triplicity ruler, if you're going to experience this in the daytime. In Asia, you'll get that day full moon. You'll see Saturn as the triplicity ruler. So there's this whole Martial Saturn thing, which is like settling into the long game, coming out of this dynamic trigger period of the mutables, and now we get to kind of settle in and kind of gather our selves and sort of figure out, okay, all that change just happened. Let's kind of settle into these new structures or new disciplines or what have you after this moment. But this is still a peak, a major peak. Even though Venus and Mercury already finished their Mars opposition, here by Thursday, this still is peaking of that Sagittarius Gemini axis with Mars there retrograde. And Sagittarius Gemini is all about like the details of an idea versus the bigger picture and the disputes about, no, this is how the world is. But no, look at this text, it says this. So it can't be that way. It's like, religious disputes about the textual versus the maybe inspirational. You see that a lot in different religious histories. People want to go back to the text and argue about the text. That's what much of this energy is about. And then the kind of passions that are brought into those arguments, often our beliefs about the world we're very passionate about those. And so we want to interject that with others, and there can be, disputes. Frankly, this is a moon of disputes. Absolutely. And then, of course, you have Jupiter in Pisces overseeing it all. I love it. It's in the same axis, this mutable axis, squaring both luminaries and Mars and Venus by sign, and closely squaring Venus by orb. And so, maybe there's a sense of grounding whatever disputes we're having in these kind of greater ideas of kind of healing and justice and the emergent, beneficence that we can bring to people as they're in disputes or as we're disputing with people. We might want to settle back into, okay, this is a human being. I love them. Try to bring love and this kind of goodwill with people, an honest search for truth or wisdom. That's what Jupiter and Pisces does here. Adding a dose of that, I think, can settle this time. Both benefic planets are in the mutable axis. And I think that adds a lot of value here, where we can think about others and their comfort and their needs and kind of love them as more of a higher level model, or see how we can care for them. Very much can ground during what is kind of a very acrimonious eclipse period. Okay, let's keep moving. I wanted just to come in. This is a quote from James Holden's History of Horoscopic Astrology. Foundational text for anybody out there who's wanting to ground in the history of the tradition. The book by James Holden is the book to have. It's a great reference text because he goes through the whole history, all the major astrologers. And here he's quoting Theophilus of Edessa. And I just picked this out because in this page, it's page 105. I think Holden did translate this from the Greek, is my guess. But another translation of this has come out from Ben Dykes since Holden published this book. But Theophilus just goes through quick one-word delineations. And he says, for example, in War's Mars and in Speech Mercury. And I love this because it's Mercury is speech and Mars is war. And we can think about Mars in Gemini as relating to both those two things, because Mercury rules Gemini. So it's the acrimony, it's the passion, it's maybe the attention and going in directly to engage people with speech. And that's also shown here in the tarot with the Lover's card corresponding to Gemini. A lot of people, and in the older, I should have brought my Tarot of Marseille version of this, because it shows disputes. It's like Cupid here, and there's like people fighting about the love. And this Pamela Coleman illustration isn't quite as accurate on that. It's a little bit more, I guess, amenable here with the depiction shown. But the point is with Gemini, it's always 2 or 3 or more. It can be many, and it's air, it's thought, it's speech. You get 3 or 4 people in a room, you drop a topic. There's going to be people with different ideas, exchanging, they're sharing their beliefs, they're debating. That happens when you get even 2 people, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all what Gemini is. It's the multiplicity of the senses and the ideas and the beliefs, and then maybe the acrimony that comes from that. I think with Venus also in Sagittarius, and Jupiter in Pisces, the Lover's card in this kind of more higher octave sense, maybe can show us something, bringing love and connectivity as much as we can, in spite of being in the ring with people. Okay, let's go next. This is the Decan. In the Tarot, the minor arcana all correspond to 10 degrees of the zodiac. And when you have the 9 of Swords, it's the middle decan of Gemini. You can see here, this does not look like a fun scene. Pamela Coleman's, her depiction here. It's not a fun scene. I like the actual quilt here. I'd never seen this before. All the zodiac signs quilted with roses. That's a cool bed cover. But this is someone who's, suffering here with sadness in their mental capacity. Maybe there was a debate earlier and they're regretful, or they said something regretful, or they were attacked verbally. Anytime we get into exchanges with people where there's tension, it does impact us. You might exchange with someone and then, 2 or 3 hours later, it's like, dang it, you're reliving it in your mind. These are the kind of things that are all in play this week. Resentment, reliving things mentally, regretting things. And so I do want to very much encourage, if we come back to the chart, think about Jupiter in Pisces. What is Jupiter? Beneficence, hope, visioning, justice, the truth that justice depends upon, the actual giving to people, giving. And Venus is connecting through, maybe our passions, right? And so I think we can be a little bit deferential with Jupiter and Pisces. Hey, show me what you think. Show me what you believe. Oh, you're mad. Something I said caused you some pain here. Okay, listen, let me learn from you. Show me what, coming down from and if we do act out, maybe be quick to apologize or say, listen, I'm sorry. I want to try to bring this kind of love and connectivity, this joining or union nature of Venus and Jupiter. Let's try to bring that in and center that within these kind of disputes. Okay. The other thing is, if you're using this to plan, and this is the thing about the planning side that I was talking about earlier, this might be a time when you're going back and forth over different options, or there's a lack of certainty. Maybe you've been preparing, but now that's all changed with this heavy mutable activation, the T-square, with Jupiter and Venus, and Mercury is there now, and Mars. Maybe that's all been like you going back and forth, or new ideas, or it's been kind of destabilizing to have so many options to pick from. That's what mutable signs are, double-bodied. And so, with a moment like this, you can give yourself permission to not decide or wait, or just wait for this to pass. As my strategy is just kind of try to wait and forgive myself, love the different ideas, or if I'm changing plans, or if I'm rejecting things that I was once embracing. All of that's part of how we can use Jupiter and Venus in this very dynamic moment. All right, here's some of the news stories I'm digging into. I saw this is massive over the last 2 weeks. AI has just taken over the online spaces, particularly Twitter. There's stories about the new AI bot. It's this is actually not about that. There's this GPT chat. The OpenAI has released a chat bot. People are typing in give me a 5-paragraph essay, and it's a perfect 5-paragraph essay on whatever topic. And I just pulled this article. This was from Vox, Kelsey Piper, because she has in here this idea. AI translation is now so advanced that it's on the brink of obviating language barriers. So like in translation, AI is so advanced that those barriers are gone. That's Mars, right? Breaking open. It's also college professors are tearing their hair out because AI generators can now write essays as well as your typical undergraduate. No plagiarism detector can catch. And so the AI is actually, it's not in the future, it's now. It's coming into the space that was formerly the realm of human activity, writing, thinking. The AI can now do that, can write better than most educated people, because most people write in college and they don't keep writing, Those AIs can generate text better than most people now. And the radical implications of that we're seeing that this week as we're peaking with this Mars retrograde full moon. And this is what I was talking about in that New Empire video, the emergence of the digital world, and how I think it's going to open up a whole new kind of stability in a way, a pax, which is a period of peace and stability. Then you have here the other thing about it, these art is winning the state fair artworks, and that's a big problem, right? And so we're grappling with, like, this AI is coming into these formerly considered human spaces. What's our response? How are we going to cope or grapple? The other thing is Lenza. It's a app that is released for Apple. Many of my astrologer friends on Twitter, they're all showing their AI generated portraits, and it's kind of taking over the avatar scene on Twitter amongst certain astrologers. So that's AI literally in the last week as this is peaking. Strongly emerged. And I think that's part of, here's the AI chat GPT stuns academics with its essay writing skills and usability. This just opened up. Elon Musk founded OpenAI. You can just go to Twitter and type in chat GPT. You can see all the examples. This was for December, Alex Hearn in The Guardian. This is a major thing. The same week that Lens is released, this GPT chatbot gets released. And so what in the astrology is triggering all of these questions about AI? Well, it's the air trine. It's the air trine between Mars retrograde, but it's Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius is major right now. It's coming home. It's like the home stretch of Saturn in Aquarius. And so there's a cohering and coalescence around all of the Aquarian changes, the new order that Saturn brings when it enters Aquarius, trining the planet of action and review, and kind of also planning and kind of cohering in a way. This Mars retrograde transit is about digging out and cohering anew. I think maybe, so as it's peaking here, this week, you see this major AI unfoldment. I think that's going to be a huge part of the next. We're here now. It's already a huge part of our reality. It's only to continue to be more so. And it's part of both the Mars and Gemini retrograde. See that video that I mentioned, and it's part of Saturn and Aquarius. Okay, so let me come back here. Here's some AI generated art. I've been getting into it. I've been really enjoying there's actually a creativity, the human creativity that comes with using these tools. That's one thing I personally want to share with you. I've used AI generated writing and art, and you have to work at it and give it prompts and learn how it works. And you can get creative with what you tell it. And then the inputs, not everything in inputs, most of it's trash. So you're sifting through drafts. The writing, most of it's trash. You have to take the words and then basically you become the editor. So it's like a tool that helps you produce things. It's just kind of like another tool, part of the toolbox of the creative. I love this one. And I think it's I'm going to close with two of these as like the summary of the metaphor I want you to think about with this full moon. Talking to a wall, right? These people are like confused, maybe they're blocked, and it's like talking to a wall. That's perfect for Mars retrograde in Gemini. Waiting, talking to a wall, there's no response. It's unclear what the response is. And you're having to kind of grapple with maybe the frustration that might engender. So that one was really cool. And then I wanted to share this final one. This was one that was similar. It's like there's some kind of business being done here. You can see a table and there's maybe trying to buy or sell. This is Mercury. But then there's people like debating here maybe, and sort of like pausing or waiting or in line. It's raining, it looks like. So maybe they're kind of waiting for rain to come or deciding what to do. Should they close the shop? Maybe they need money back? All of these things that are Mars retrograde in Gemini, the disputes around kind of business or the delays or the planning for what may come if it's raining and things like this. So this is another major theme that, or another image that I was able to generate that captures these themes. So anyhow, I wish you a wonderful full moon. Take it easy and just wait it out. If you're worried about things going down this week, I would not be, if you don't have to, going in and like having difficult conversations or anything like that. Just wait for this to be over. Wait for that Cancer moon on the 10th and 11th. I think it's 9th, 10th, and 11th on the weekend. Best. It's the best moment. You can see my December video where I talk about that. It's my favorite moon of the month. And it's the final water moon with Jupiter in Pisces. It'll be this lovely water trine. Powerful moon, powerful Jupiter, moon averse to both malefics. So look into that and use that and wait to do what you need to do until that weekend moment. Okay, that's it. Thanks for being here. I'm glad to engage in the astrological conversation. It's always an honor just to be another syzygy to talk about. It never gets dull. It's always unfolding, and it's always richly connected to the unfoldment of our reality. And I love it. So I'm happy to be here, happy to be engaging. Here's that website, sjanderson144.com. Just go here, check it out. Schedule readings if you'd like me to read your chart. There's some slots open there, I think. And have a wonderful, wonderful time this week. Stay, protected, and stay kind of maybe safe, I think is a fine word, for this very much a martial full moon in Gemini. Talk soon. Take care.